Hey guys, Carlos Colon here with Georgia Perimeter Homes, and today we're going to be talking about 6 questions to ask your lender when you're in the home buying process. So if you have not done so already, please click the subscribe button and the like button, and you'll start getting notifications from us if you hit that notification bell every single week when we release a new video with real estate information. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so let's jump right in. You're looking to buy a home and you are in the process of getting pre-approved. So I'm going to go ahead and preface some of the things we've already talked about in some of our previous videos real quick and let you know that you should always shop around. And what I mean by that is pick 3 different lenders. You can pick more. You can put 4 or 5 and do this process all at the same time with them. And that'll help really narrow down who's going to do a good job for you and who's just blowing up smoke and just making promises they can't really keep. So by the time you get into the contract, it might be too late. So you want to make sure that you do this work ahead of time, really narrow the field down as to who you're going to use for this loan. So number 1 is going to be to ask them to please underwrite you as the buyer before you've even selected the home. Okay, not all companies do this, but the reason why this is so important is because there are some details that credit scores will not show sometimes. One of them has to do with payment history when it comes to how they look at your bills. Another one has to do with, well, maybe you had a foreclosure that they didn't even think about or didn't even pop up before that wouldn't have come up until you get into underwriting. Well, that's an issue because we don't need to be under contract and going through this process and then finding out later, hey, we had a foreclosure, you've got to wait another year before you can buy another house. And so these are details that matter. They really do. And so this will also help solidify your interest rate, what kind of fees you're going to be charged, and that's some of the other things that we're going to talk about. So, number 1, always ask them to underwrite your file as the buyer even before you've selected a property. Simply asking this question will help lead into some of the next questions. So, number 2, what is my interest rate? Okay, so this is obviously important because everyone loves to shop around for their interest rate, but there's a lot to this that isn't always disclosed ahead of time, and it sounds like it would be just such a simple question. Hey, what interest rate can you get me? Well, as cheap as you want if you're willing to pay for it. And that's the real answer. So some lenders automatically just tell you a number after seeing and running your credit without really being able to follow through with that promise and looking at your file. And then they go back and go, yeah, but that was before we saw that you had this on your credit or this kind of payment history or these kind of late payments. Well, okay, well, why didn't you know that ahead of time? It's because they didn't underwrite you. So that's number 1 and number 2. So they have to do with each other. So again, number 1, underwrite me ahead of time. Number 2, what is my interest rate? Number 3, are there any fees, okay, or points associated with my file or with that interest rate? So let's say that they're promising that they can get me a 3.5 or a 4% interest rate. Great. Is that at 0 points and with no fees, related to that rate? And see what they say. And so sometimes they bounce around that and they'll talk a lot about everything under the sun, which kind of leads into some of the other questions we're going to ask. But again, are there any points or fees associated with that particular interest rate? That's extremely important. Depending on what kind of file you have also, sometimes you may want to ask if this is just a separate bullet point, if the file is going to end up being assumable. Some files are assumable by a new buyer if they come up and purchase it that way, and that's okay. It's just that's something you may want to ask just for the future reference, but it's not really pertinent to you purchasing the property. Number 4 is going to break down some of those fees. Hey, what are what are your origination, your underwriting, and your processing fees? And so these are some of the fees that vary from lender to lender and from bank to bank. And those are important for you to know because not everyone's the same. So again, what are your origination, your processing, and your underwriting fees for my file? And you want to get those numbers and get a good breakdown of them because sometimes you start to see that they may look like they are giving you the best interest rate, but they're charging you an arm and a leg somewhere else in order to give you that rate. And a lot of times, sometimes if you're dealing with a broker, they're actually selling the file to somebody else. So it's more complicated than it seems. So having all these answers on the front side really helps you to determine who the best lender is going to be for your particular situation. Number 5 is going to be, what is my estimated cash to close? So what we're really asking for here is how much money do I need to bring to the closing table in order to secure this file and close this out and make this house mine? Now, keep something in mind. In order to even get this number, we really need to actually have a house pointed out, and they're going to do the estimate based on that house. Here's what I suggest you do, because if you're following along with the steps, step 1 was underwrite me before I even pick a house, right? So pick a hypothetical house that's on the market that you actually like and might be interested in. Just give them that address and go, this is the house, this is the price, exactly what they're asking for. And then base everything off of those numbers and just see what that looks like. Then at that point, that'll really give you a good idea on what your closing costs might actually end up being. And so they'll give you estimates on your insurance, even though you haven't picked one yet, your estimated prorated taxes, because that's typically based on the year before. And this will give you a good idea on, do I actually have enough cash to make this happen? There are some lenders that won't even really ask that question like they need to. And they just assume that you have family members that are just going to gift you thousands of dollars in order to close this file. So, again, make sure that you have that answer. Hey, what is my estimated cash to close in order to get a house like this? And that'll help you determine, because you might pre-qualify for $500,000 or pre-approved for that, but according to how much money you have saved up, you might actually only have enough money saved up to get a $300,000 house, and we need to know that. Because that might make a significant change in the way that you use or what type of loan that you use or what price point you search for. And last but not least, number 6, which is going to be, can you give me a copy please of my loan estimate? Or this is going to be a loan fee sheet is another name that it goes by. A loan estimate is going to have the full breakdown of everything pertaining to your file. Now again, they're going to assume some things when it comes to the taxes, the insurance, that kind of a deal. But as long as you've given them a property to go off of, now we can actually see the full breakdown. This loan estimate sheet, one sheet, should have everything on it for you. It'll have points broken down, underwriting fees, processing fees, everything. Now, again, if you're following along, and you heard me at the beginning, which is you should be doing this with 3 to 5 different lenders simultaneously. Guess what you should be doing? If you do this with all the lenders, now you have 3 to 5 of them that you can sit side by side and go, okay, well, clearly these are going to be the cheapest options for us that are going to give us the best interest rate and give us the best deal. Okay, and then at that point you have to weigh another important factor. They might be the cheapest, but are they going to be the best experience for you during the lending process? Just because they're the cheapest doesn't mean that they're going to be the easiest to work with. Okay, and so I've run across this many times with either big banks or big firms. I've also run across it with great companies, loan companies, but I'm dealing with a really bad loan officer within that company. You just never know who you're dealing with, and the only way to really get to know that side of it is to ask for referrals. Never be afraid to reach out to a real estate agent, to reach out to your friends. Real estate agents are great because they're in the industry every single day, and ask them for, hey, who would be a great loan officer that you would recommend for me to reach out to? And that will help narrow down the list with completely different companies. And also, don't be afraid to go out of state lines. So I deal with some lenders in California, and we're here in Georgia right now. They do great work for us. And sometimes for people that get off of work at 5 p.m. and they can't be on the phone until 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, guess what? They're still working over there. So it's perfect. So that wraps up this video, and if you need anything, please reach out to us. Our website is www.georgiaperimeterhomes.com. Phone number 770-314-1285. Thanks. Bye.